Hello and welcome to this first video dedicated to the use of smart dimensions with IronCAD and Oikima. In this video I will create a curved panel with a parametric sketch that will allow me to act either on the radius or on the value of the radius offset. Let's start with standard panel. In the dimension settings I switch the standard section to user section in order to be able to rework the shape of the panel. I am not locking the panel dimensions because I want to be able to use this panel in a cabinet, so the panel needs to keep its dimensions variable as I will be using it as a panel template. I do not forget to select the stop reference for the CNC, then validate and quit the panel manager. I then scroll down the tree, right click on the panel section and select Edit. I select the Arc 3-point tool, then draw the arc on the already existing rectangle. I then call the Trim tool to remove the superfluous line. Once the panel shape is finished, I test the geometry to see how it will react when resizing the panel. If I pull on the vertices, which are supposed to remain perpendicular, we can see the angle changes and the geometry therefore loses perpendicularity. I go back and therefore activate the perpendicular geometric constraints suggested on these two vertices. If I pull one of these two vertices again, the geometry will leave the X and Y axis. Also, when I pull on one of the vertices connected to the arc, we can see that the two parallel lines do not have the same length, which is not the desired behavior for the example. I will use an equal length constraint on both lines. I could also have used a constraint of horizontal point between the two vertices. To move the shape back to the origin of the sketch, I'm using the collinear constraint to fix the geometry to the X and Y axis. Once the various constraints have been placed, the shape will be able to resize itself without losing its geometry. Let's move on to sizing. By using the SmartDimension tool, I will be able to size the geometric shape. By default, the entered values will be locked. Each smart dimensions placed in the sketch will generate a parameter in the IronCAD parameters table. First, I will size the panel length. In the window that appears, I enter the name of the smart dimension, here L, and I add sketch in the name. Small tip, name your parameters. By adding the sketch keyword in the parameters, the dimension will be more easily identifiable in the IronCAD parameters table. I enter the value, here 1000. Then I resize the panel width. I select the top of the arc, then the x-axis. I enter H sketch and its value here 600. I now resize the radius, enter a name, here radius sketch, and enter a value, here 800. The smart dimension is now colored red, so it is in the locked state. You can see on the sketch that the whole path is green, which means that the sketch is well defined. The geometry will only be able to resize when I change the value of the start dimensions. I unlock the smart dimension and then size the offset indentation. This will allow me to alternate between parametric sketch based on radius or shrinkage. I enter a name here, retrait rayon sketch, then enter a value here 200 mm. Once validated, I unlock this smart dimension. For the example of the next video and for informational purposes, I add a line connecting the top of the arc and the x-axis. I pass a line under construction because it does not belong to the geometry of the panel. So that the line perfectly extends the arc of a circle, I add a tangential constraint to it. Then I place a smart dimension between this line and the edge of the panel, which therefore allows me to recover the value of the angle. I unlock the angle smart dimension, then pull on the top of the line to test the sketch. You can see that the three unlocked smart dimensions in blue change values when I edit the sketch. The sketch is now properly configured. I validate the sketch and we can see the panel takes the form of the sketch. Back in the design environment, I need to force the panel length and width to the sketch smart dimensions to make the values match. I open the parameters table, select the panel assembly, and check the box to display the level parameters in the selected form. I must now copy the name of the parameters associated with the dimensions of the panel in the expression box of the locked smart dimensions of the sketch. So I copy L into L sketch and H into H sketch. I apply, then click on OK. I scroll down the tree and select the sketch. The smart dimensions are displayed on the 3D window. Depending on how I want to run the model, I can decide to lock or unlock the smart dimension. Example here, I want to impose a radius. I right-click on the smart dimension, then Edit. I fill in the radius value and check the lock box. When I validate, we can see the panel resize. Understand that a smart dimension can have the locked state in red, which means that the value it indicates is fixed and modifiable. Smart dimension can have the unlocked state in blue, which means that the value it indicates is there for informational purposes, and one can change value if a locked smart dimension is changed. And finally, a smart dimension can have the parameterized state in yellow, which means that it is directed and refers to a parameter. In order to use this panel as a template, I unlock the smart dimensions, then drop Save to Library and save the panel to the template library. When I use this model, I could then choose the smart dimensions to lock or unlock according to my needs.